How you doing, guys? Big Mac Dance School here again today, back once again with another episode of
Warhammer Thoughty K.
Today's episode. I want to talk to you about changing colour schemes. Now, firstly, why might you want to change your colour scheme? So, there's a few reasons why you might want to change your colour scheme. Let's say you're playing Eldar, you want a particularly militaristic branch of the Eldar, so you go to Bealtam. But then one reason you might want to change the colour scheme, white is really tricky to get right. You know, most people with white, especially when they're starting out in the hobby, they'll paint white. But, you know, maybe you shouldn't do that. You should paint grey and lead up to other colours, edge highlighting in white to make it look white. And, you know, vice versa. If it's a black army that you're painting, it's hard to get that right as well, because it's about getting the right techniques. So if you're an inexperienced hobbyist, you might find a particular colour difficult to paint, or even experienced hobbyists find particular colours difficult to paint. Like many people find yellow difficult to paint, many people find red difficult to paint, and so on and so forth. You know, each individual has different colours that they just struggle to paint for some reason, and get looking nice. So that might be one reason to change your colour scheme. Another reason, you may want to come up with your own fluff for the army, your own spin on the army. I know, and I'm going to be talking about this in a bit more detail. Mythos from the channel Frost and Fist, he's painted his Space Wolves in black and silver, and he's come up with his own fluff for that, which is I think a really good way to get yourself really more invested in the force than you may have been before. So we've got difficult colours to paint, we've got coming up with your own fluff. What else is there? So a third reason could be that you just really like a certain colour, or you really want to paint a certain colour. You want to challenge yourself in a particular way. And let's say you're becoming more experienced in the hobby, and you've never painted yellow, but you really want to try yellow. You know, a lot of people out there, so yellow's a really difficult colour to get right. Part of the reason is the amount of pigment that most companies put in the paint. The yellow pigment is quite hard to manufacture, so there's less of the pigment in the paint. So that's why a lot of people find yellow difficult to paint. GW's yellow paints are actually quite high in pigment, I think, compared to others. But some companies out there, they still use quite a low amount of pigment in there. But yeah, there are a few reasons why you might want to change the colour of your army. So I'm going to talk about making that army your own, and if you change the colour scheme for whatever reason, you can then create your own fluff to support the new look of your army. So we can also one other thing to mention, rather, it ties in with this nicely, is when you think of the Space Marines, you have the first founding chapters, and then you have the descendant chapters from other foundings. So let's think of the Blood Angels. So the Blood Angels have lots of descendant chapters. One of them's the Flesh Tearers, one of them's Lamenters, one of them's I can't think of any more now off the top of my head for some reason. But yeah, let's talk about the Flesh Tearers and Lamenters. The Flesh Tearers stay reasonably close to the Blood Angels scheme, but they use a deeper red on their armour, and the shoulder pads are black. The Lamenters, however, vary from that scheme massively. They paint their armour yellow, and they have black and white checks on and stuff like that. So, excuse me, GW, in their own fluff and in Space Marine books, they use that as a way for you to say, paint your armies how you want. You know, there's 1,000 chapters out there in the galaxy, so, and we've not given names to all of those chapters, so you can create your own chapters. That's what GW do. Now, some chapters don't have any descendant chapters, like the Space Wolves. So going back to Mythos' Space Wolves now, I asked Mythos a question about his Space Wolves, why he paints them black and silver. And he said to me, basically, he was when he was starting the game, he didn't think the blue of the Space Wolves, the blue-grey colour, he didn't think it was very wolfy. So Mythos had to think about it. You know, what colours could he use other than the blue-grey? And he came up with the idea of using black and silver. Black because wolves are nocturnal animals, and silver because it reminded him of moonlight. Handily as well, this appeals to his sense of aesthetic. He likes those colours, so chances are he's going to enjoy painting those colours a lot more than if he forced himself to paint the typical blue-grey and the colourful shoulder pads of the Space Wolves, of the traditional Space Wolves. Now, one thing to mention here, I may have mentioned it already in fact, is that Space Wolves don't have any descendant chapters. So you've got to come up with a viable story as to why these wolves are painting their armour in a different colour to the regular Space Wolves. So what Mythos did, he had to sit down and he thought about a reason why they may be doing this. So he later based his fluff around these colours, having crash landed on a planet occupied by a much larger Black Legion force. His Space Wolves painted their armour black and adopted night hunting tactics to ambush patrols and smaller chunks of the other forces. In the dark of the night, they trimmed their armour with silver to differentiate themselves from the Black Legion counterparts. A wolf brother that saw the gleam of black and gold armour would know to strike true at the Black Legion foe. If the wolf brother saw a gleam of silver instead, they would know the armour was friendly. So that gives you a good fluff reason. Whilst this branch of the Space Wolves was stranded on this planet, they were massively outnumbered by this Black Legion force. They were using guerrilla warfare tactics to try and take out smaller chunks of the Black Legion force. And there could be things that certain people will say about this. I'd suggest it's people that don't really understand Thoughty K if you say something like this. But you have all sorts of technology in the future that you can detect if it's your friend or your foe. So the Black Legion should have known that it was an enemy. But a lot of technology has been lost and stuff like that. So a lot of stuff in the Thoughty K universe is done with eyesight. A lot of people talk about swords not being a good part of the Thoughty K universe, because why would you use a sword when you've got a gun? But it's just part of the aesthetic of the universe. So once you've got past that, you realise it's fine. So he's come up with this fluff that they crashed on this world, and they fight in a guerrilla warfare style. And then when they leave, the thing about the Space Wolves is when they leave that world, when they eventually manage to get off that world, they will retain that as part of their saga and stuff like that, and it becomes part of the culture of that particular, whether it's a great company or just a part of a great company. So for me, fluff-wise, that really fits with the Space Wolves, because they are likely to retain, not just in memory, but in physical attributes as well. They are likely to retain what served them well, and it also helps them tell the tale of what happened to them, and it gives their subculture within the wider Space Wolves. It gives their subculture a bit more identity. So after using this tactic to survive and triumph over a larger foe, they called the leader that came up with this tactic Mythos Silvermoon, and it wasn't long before the wolves under his command began to call themselves the Silvermoon Wolves. And again, this is a typical thing of the great companies. Now, the various great companies, one of them is the Black Mains, one of them the Red Moors. They're named after their leaders. So if Mythos Silvermoon was the leader of a great company, then the wolves under him would become the Silvermoons. It all fits and ties in nicely, nice and neat with the Space Wolf fluff that already exists, is already out there. So it's the perfect way to tie it all in. So I guess what I'm trying to say, the reason I spoke about what Mythos said to me was whatever your initial reason is for choosing a particular colour scheme, whether it's just because you prefer the colour red to the colour blue, so you paint your ultramarines red, if it's because you struggle to paint the colour yellow, so you paint the colour green instead, whatever the reason, if you can come up with a fluffy reason, then it ties it in nicely, and your opponent is more likely to accept that. Now, some people out there are absolutely fine with you painting your miniatures whatever colour in whichever fashion you want. There's people out there that paint My Little Ponies all over tanks and stuff like that, and I'd be okay to play against a force like that. It's not, it's a stretch. It doesn't quite fit with the aesthetic of 40k. But if they were saying the Emperor's Children and they love lovely ponies, then there's reasons, and it's just that guy's having fun with their hobby, or that guy or girl is having fun with their hobby. So to me, it's not that offensive that I'd refuse to play them or anything like that. But there are people out there that object to armies not being painted the way they expect. Now, if you look at mini wargaming battle reports, now they have a whole chapter of Space Marines painted in the mini wargaming colours. So they have green armour, and I think they have bits of orange on them and stuff like that as well. I can't remember exactly. But they use that Space Marine chapter in various battle reports, and they use different chapter tactics in those battle reports. And when they do, they say Imperial Fists, which is the mini wargaming chapter, versus Black Legion, or Salamanders, mini wargaming chapter, versus Eldar, or Ultramarines, again, the mini wargaming chapter. I think you're getting the idea now. Ultramarines versus Word Bearers, something like that. And then in the comments section, if you look at those videos, you get comments now and again saying, "Oh, this isn't Ultramarines, what are you doing?" Oh, but the idea is, because they've created that chapter, they can use whatever chapter tactics they want in their battle reports, and they can get more varied battle reports out of it. But there's always going to be some people out there that say, "Oh, this isn't Ultramarines, what are you doing to me?" Because, I get it. Sometimes people want to see what they expect. They want to see these Ultramarines take on the Word Bearers. It's a grudge match kind of thing from the Horus Heresy. So when they don't immediately see that in front of them, they're kind of like taken aback by it. But what mini wargaming say is that they're using the Ultramarines chapter tactics. So they play exactly the same as Ultramarines, they just don't quite look the same. Personally, I don't have a problem with that as long as the chapter tactics are right. It's not maybe as cinematic, but when the guy holding the camera pans up and looks at his opponent, oh, what's that? Is that a big giant? No, it's the person playing the game. You can only get so cinematic with these tabletop war games. And mini wargaming do a great job of it as well. Doing little cutscenes between turns and stuff like that. A lot of bat reps, people who do bat reps out there, Winter's SEO, Dark Artisan, they all do these cutscenes and stuff in between. But I'm going off on a tangent now. Anyway, yeah. So my point was, paint your army how you want. If you think you're gonna not enjoy painting a certain colour, then paint your army how you want. If I think of my Orc Goths, and I've not painted many black because I came up with this idea of the orange is the new black Orc Goths. It was a play on words, and it was because black orcs are a thing in Warhammer Fantasy or Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So orange is a new black Orc Goths. I like the idea of orange goes well with green. So I like the idea of orange jumpsuited orcs that have been in some kind of internment camp or something like that. And then they've broken out, but also I can tie my flash kits in there because flash kits like bright colours. So you come up with your own reasons for doing stuff, and if it means you get painted models on the table, that's got to be a positive as well. There's always going to be people out there that don't agree with you painting your models in a certain way, but thankfully I've never come across anyone like that. It's completely up to you how you paint your models, and stick with it. If it helps you get your models painted, then more for the better. Is that even a phrase? I don't know. But we'll leave it there for now, guys. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you on the battlefield.